Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen Sorley, and I will be your host today. I really do appreciate all of you taking out some time today to learn a little bit more about play attention and how we utilize the latest research in neuroplasticity and NASA-inspired body wave technology to improve executive function and self-regulation. There are a couple of things I want to mention before we get started. One is that we are recording this event. So at the end of the webinar, you will receive an email with the recording link. That way you'll be able to share this webinar with any family members or staff members who were unable to attend the live event. Also, there is a chat box, of course, in Zoom. So if you do have any questions, or any comments, please do type them in the chat box. I really do like to interact with you during this time, so please do use that chat box. We do have a large audience today, so if I don't get to all of your questions during the webinar, we will be certain to follow up with all of you to touch base and answer your questions if they didn't get addressed during this time. There is a raise your hand icon as well next to the chat box. So occasionally I may ask you to raise your hand. The more interaction, the better during this time. So again, my name is Gwen Sorley. My background is in education. I have a master's in education, and I started using play attention with my students in a public school setting back in 1996. So since that time, I've used play attention with my students and my clients from every age, from about 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. So hopefully my experiences using this technology with a variety of individuals will give you a better overview of the program and allow you time to really process the information and understand if this is the right tool for you. Now, this is usually where I talk about my agenda, but really this is your time. So what is your agenda? Why are you here today? I'm certain that probably 95% of you here today have an individual or perhaps a group of individuals in mind, and you would like to help those individuals improve attention, improve their memory, improve impulse control. Perhaps you're looking to improve overall executive function. So let me know in the chat box, if you would, can you let me know who you are considering play attention for today? Are you looking at play attention for yourself, your child, your grandchildren, your students, your clients, all of the above? Go ahead and let me know so we can get a good understanding of who's here today. And I will actually share some of the answers so that we can all see who's here today and who you're considering play attention for. Now, typically, when we talk about ADHD, a lot of times we focus on the negatives, right? But let's start with some of the positives. So, because there are some really positive characteristics when you may have an attention difficulty or perhaps ADHD. So, if you're here for your child or your clients or yourself, are you really creative? Are you smart, caring, really athletic? Let me know some of those fantastic strengths. And if some of you have been coming to our webinar series on how to make ADHD your superpower, we're actually doing a special series where we talk about these strengths and how we can learn how to manage certain characteristics to make certain that these strengths are always positives in our lives. So let me know some of those strengths that you experience. But then also, I do want to know, of course, what areas would you like to improve? So if you could just type in the chat box why you're here today, who are you considering play attention for? And also, what areas would you like to improve? So for example, Beverly says that she is from Canada and needs this for learning patience. Amelia says homework and attention. Excellent. So keep typing in your responses. Maybe homework is taking too long. Maybe you find yourself constantly drifting where you're in a conversation and 20 minutes into the conversation, you suddenly realize you have no idea what that other person has been saying. Is there a lack of impulse control? Is it difficult for your child to stop, think, and then act? How are your organizational skills? Time management, is that an issue? Do you often experience that time blindness where you're always running behind, no matter how prepared you feel you are? Maybe you have difficulty, or your child or your clients has difficulty with peer relationships or emotion regulation. So thank you to everyone who has typed in their responses. That's really helpful. Um, Lark says, let's see, I'm wondering how play attention works with temporal lobe ADHD. So I think we're going to get into a lot of this. And if you have specific questions as we go through, let me know. Marianne is here for herself. Gail is for students in middle school. Greg is here for his child. Julie is here for herself. Catherine is a school psychologist and have children 4 to 19. Excellent. Very good. And let's see. Sandy says she's here for her son. They want to work on emotion control and homework. Sandy wants to improve organization and sustained attention. Gail, organization, homework, attention for students. Lark wants to work on following directions. Impulse control is also huge. Greg, organizational skills and impulse control. Marianne, good. Some positives here, some strengths. My strengths are compassion, intelligence, and generosity. I need to be able to focus on my work to turn out assignments more quickly. I have major time blindness and think I can get much more done than is feasible, ending up staying up way too late. Absolutely. That's very, very common, Marianne. Faye says, looking at it for her child, attention, impulse control, emotional control. Kevin is looking at it for his foster child. Kristen for himself and his son. Her son. And that's really important to keep in mind. Kristen says she's looking at it for herself and her son. And that's really important to remember that, we don't know what causes an attention difficulty. No one knows what causes ADHD, but it does seem to run in many families. Play attention is appropriate from any age, from about 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. So we have many parents who go through the program with their children. And I think that is a great way to do it, Kristen, because then it's this shared experience where, mom is working on her skills as well. And although you'll be using the same system, your program will be fully customized. Cynthia, good day. I'm here for my 17-year-old who is struggling with motivation and prioritizing homework. He just received a D in an honors class, not because he can't do the work. He tested with an 140 IQ, but because he won't do the homework. So Cynthia, we are going to go into that a lot here because you're right. It has nothing to do with intelligence, right? Usually we work with individuals who are average to well above average in intelligence. So it's not that they can't do the work. It's just these underlying skills that currently are weak for them. Please do keep your comments coming. I can't read them all, but I do appreciate you all contributing. So what we want to do is really help develop all of these skills that you're talking about. Because when we talk about attention deficit, as you just listed here in this list, attention is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There are many other areas we'd like to improve: impulse control, peer relationships, organizational skill, time management. And we know that we can help through what we know about neuroplasticity, that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you with the right learning tool and the right challenge, you can develop these skills despite your current wiring. We know that age is not a factor. We also know that labels like ADHD or autism or traumatic brain injury are not a factor. If we provide you the right tools and the right challenge, You can develop these skills. It used to be thought that at the ripe old age of 9 years old, your brain no longer really changed that much. And the chance of you changing your brain throughout your lifetime was minimal. Now we know through neuroplasticity that that is not true, that your brain continues to change and create new neural pathways throughout your lifetime. That's how we develop skills. The brain creates these new neural pathways, creates new networks. And that is really critical to understand that you can make these changes throughout your lifetime. I have parents all the time who say, yeah, but my son's 15. Isn't it too late? It is not too late. We have clients in their 70s and 80s who are still strengthening and learning these skills and developing these skills. And you can do that too. But brain change doesn't just happen. There are certain catalysts that are necessary for brain change, and Play Attention incorporates those catalysts necessary for brain change into our program. So we take all of the latest research we know from neuroplasticity and incorporate that into our program. And we're going to talk about how we do that, because we do this in a very unique way in order to strengthen executive function. That's our end goal, right? We have to actually strengthen these core cognitive skills that lay the foundation for strong executive function. And we do this in a unique way in that we integrate feedback-based technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available. The very key is our body wave technology. So this is that specially designed armband. Some of you may have actually seen this on our website. So on the back, there are 3 sensors, and those sensors monitor your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer, where you're allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attention alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. And that's a really important first step in the learning process, because right now, I want you to consider this. If you look at your child or your clients or your students and you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? Go ahead and type in the response you usually hear, because I bet a lot of you are hearing the same thing that I used to hear as a teacher. You look at your child and you say, I need you to pay attention. What do you hear back typically? Beverly, exactly what I used to hear. Beverly and Gail and Deanna and Roy, you're all saying, I am paying attention. And that's exactly what I used to hear. I am paying attention. And they really think that they are, but they just haven't developed what it takes for them to stay very focused to low stimuli activities for long periods of time. So now what we're doing is we're taking that very abstract concept of attention and we're making it concrete and controllable, where they actually see their attention in real time. They feel what they're doing, and they're allowed to practice very specific skills. So that is where we integrate skill building, and that is critical. Let's think about what attention really is. How is that body wave technology monitoring your attention? Right now, you have billions of neurons firing in your brain. And when you become very attentive, all of those neurons fire in synchrony, meaning they all fire at exactly the same time. And then you give off a very specific electromagnetic signal. And that signal is what this body wave armband is listening for. It's listening for that moment when all of those neurons fire in synchrony. And then, as I said, that information is given over to the computer, where you're allowed to control all of these cognitive exercises just with your attentive state alone. And you are going to activate all of these activities just with your mind alone. So if you look on the screen, you see there are many different cognitive skills that we address within the program. Because remember, in the very beginning, we talked about how our goal is to strengthen executive function. But in order to do that, we have to develop and really strengthen those core cognitive skills that are necessary for strong executive function. And how many of you here today, if you would use the raise your hand icon, how many of you are familiar with that term executive function? Because I don't want to, go too far without making certain that everyone has a good understanding. Okay, good. It looks like about half of you are really familiar with executive function. So if you are not as familiar, let's just talk about what executive function is. Executive function is a set of processes that allows you to control your attention, your behaviors, your emotions. It allows you to plan, prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. And these are skills that we use every day. However, they're weakest for people with attention difficulties. So, our goal is going to be to strengthen those foundational skills so that you can be more organized, so that you can control your emotions, so that you can be more mentally flexible. We're going to strengthen executive function by working on these cognitive skills. Now, if you're looking at the skills on your screen right now, you keep in mind you may not need all of these. And this is where the customization comes in. You are going to be assigned a personal executive function coach, one of our coaches here on staff, to assist you every step of the way. And one of the very first things we're going to do is pinpoint which skills are most important for you. So remember, all of them are brain enabled, meaning you have to have that body wave armband on in order to activate the activity or to keep the activity going. Now, why is that important? Well, because remember, we talked about brain change doesn't just occur. There are certain catalysts that have to be in place in order to spark that brain change. And the very first catalyst necessary for brain change is attention. You can have a great teacher, you can have a great program, but if you're not able to pay attention to the teaching method, to the learning process, then it's going to be very difficult for you to get maximum benefit, because you have to be paying attention to the teaching in order to process the information, remember the information, and follow through. So that's why many parents will call in and they'll say, we went to a great tutor and yet he's still struggling, but he's so smart. What we need to do is help strengthen the cognitive skills, because that's where the real difficulties lie. So let's look at the very first activity on the screen. It's called attention stamina. And attention stamina is your ability to direct and sustain your attention at will, much like being able to pay attention to the teacher in the classroom or the boss in the workplace. So I'm going to share with you a video of one of my students. And this is I'm going to fast forward it just a little bit. This is Ty. This is one of my students. In this video, he is 9 years old. And you'll notice that he has that body wave armband on. And I'm going to take a really quick poll. So you should be able to see on the screen. And I want you to all answer, because I want to make certain that everyone understands before I show this video. What does that body wave armband monitor? This is critical to understanding how the program works. What does that body wave armband monitor? Is it A, eye movement, B, breathing, C, brain activity, or D, FM radio? You should be able to see the poll on the screen. If you can't, you can just type in your answer in the chat box. All right, many of you have answered. Excellent. And I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Excellent. Very good. So 93% of you got the correct answer. Remember, the body wave armband is monitoring brain activity. Remember, we talked about those neurons firing in synchrony. And when they do that, you give off that electromagnetic signal. And that's what the body wave armband is listening for. Not eye movement, not breathing, but actual brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. So let's go ahead and watch Ty, because I want you to get an understanding of the actual feedback. You'll notice that he's going to see a character at the top of the screen. Once he's focused and paying attention, he's going to push that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his mind alone, just with his attention alone. So remember what you said when you ask your child, I need you to pay attention, and they say back to you, I am. This is actually going to show them attention. So you notice Ty, he's been doing play attention for about 6 months in this video. So you notice he knows exactly what it takes for him. He's relaxed. He just took a deep breath. Once he's in that attentive state, he can push that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his mind alone. No hands required. So now he knows this is the state he needs to be in order to be attentive. Okay, now watch what happens when he's not paying attention. So now he's fidgeting, he's daydreaming, he's no longer on task, he's not actively engaged. And notice what happens to that character. Immediately it starts to float up because he's no longer as attentive. And then he has to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus back in order to push it back down to the bottom of the ocean. So that's really empowering. Not only for the child learning that process, but for you, because you get to provide your child that experience, or you as a teacher, you're now providing them with an experience where they actually see their attention, they feel what they're doing, and they practice it. Now, if he's been told for many years, you can't pay attention, you never pay attention, I need you to pay attention, within the first couple of minutes, he is actually rewarded for paying attention. We're showing him that this is something he can do, which is really important in that learning process. And so I want to ask you, you notice there that what we did was take that abstract concept of attention and we made it concrete and controllable, where he actually had that experience. So I put up a little poll, one last poll on the screen, and I want you to tell me, how do you or your children or your students learn best? I know many of you have had a rare opportunity this last year where you actually see your child learning throughout the day because you've been doing a lot of homeschooling or online schooling. So what have you learned about your child, or what have you learned about yourself or your students? Are they better when there's lecture, or are they better when they are provided with an experience or hands-on? All right, and I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Okay, 100% of you said hands-on or experiential learner. That is really typical, right? They are experiential learners. I just provided, you saw Ty, I provided him with an experience. Now he knows when I say, I need you to pay attention, he knows what I mean because he's been there before. He's had that experience. Unfortunately, with attention, we're usually pretty limited. We try to teach it through lecture. We say, sit still, eyes on me, pay attention. We try to tell them what to do. And that's not enough. We have to provide them an experience and a time to practice. And that's what play attention provides. So that's just the first one, attention stamina. Now, I want you to think about all of these different cognitive areas and which activities would be best for you or your child or your clients, because that's where the customization comes in. Visual tracking. This is a great one. If the teacher's ever said to you, you know, she does great when I stand right next to her, but as soon as I walk away, she's out the window and out the door, and then she has that diffused attention where she's paying attention to a little bit of everything. So here we work on staying very focused and visually tracking that teacher as he or she moves about the classroom. This is going to be an important transitional activity for the classroom, right? Many of your children have not been in the classroom in a very long time, and you may have that opportunity to be one-on-one with them. And now they're going to be moving back into the classroom very soon, if not already. And so we have to have that ability to stay focused and visually track. Time on task. This goes back, and I am sorry, I forget who said they had the 17-year-old. Was that Beverly who said she had a 17-year-old? Cynthia, 17-year-old, who's not getting his homework done, not because he doesn't know how to do it. He's just not doing the homework. He's very smart. So it's really about the process that's difficult. So what we need to focus on is not teaching him how to do the actual homework, but how to start and complete the homework. And that's what we're doing in time on task. For adults who are here, this is for that adult who thinks, I start a million things, I finish nothing. Or you only get work assignments done at the very last minute when you are under stress. So here we're going to teach you how to start and complete. So on this activity, it's very different from the first one that you saw. You were looking at attention stamina beginner, and that one goes on for 5 minutes and then stops. But this one, since we're working on task completion, goes on and on and on until you complete your task, which is to mentally drive a forklift driver across the screen, pick up a crate, and then carry it over to a flatbed truck. If you get distracted, and remember, distraction can be a variety of things. It can be that you just start to daydream. It can be someone walks into the room and you can't filter that noise. It could be that you start a self-distracting behavior like fidgeting. Immediately, that character will freeze. And then you have to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus back in order to continue. Now, in order to complete this task, you have to actually drive that forklift driver over and move 12 crates, and then drive that drive that flatbed truck off the screen, all with your attentive state alone. You're going to notice, or Cynthia's son is going to realize very quickly that if he's procrastinating, if he's fidgeting, if he's daydreaming, this task can take 12, 14, 15 minutes. But the faster he becomes, the more proficient he becomes at starting and remaining on task until completion, he's going to consistently complete this in 7 minutes or less. Once again, really empowering him and showing him that he can do this. And that's where the real important learning is taking place, because probably you as an adult may experience this, but you may also experience this with your child, right? Your child may be at a point, especially we see this in our preteens, teenagers, where they've had a lot of failure and they've experienced some difficulties with school. And so they'll get an assignment that they can do. However, they will avoid it because they want to avoid failure. So you see that real procrastination come in. Or it could just be that they are very easily distracted, right? So get off task very, very easily. And so you start the laundry, but suddenly you remember a work meeting you have to do. And then suddenly you remember a paper you have to write. And so you have all these things on your list of things to do, and you get bits and pieces of all of them, but nothing's accomplished at the end of the day. So let's actually practice how to start and complete. Now, what I like to do a lot of times with my students is to go from time on task down to the academic bridge, because this is where we're actually going to tie in real work assignments. So you see my student here. She is actually reading, because remember, as we said, we're not monitoring where her eyes are. We're monitoring how attentive she is. So as long as she's paying attention to her reading, she's able to push that red bar up above the midline, but she's not looking at the screen. So she actually hears from the computer, good, great. So she knows she's in that state she needs to be in order to stay on task, process, and finish. So Cynthia, this would be excellent to use while your son is doing his homework, to keep him on task. It's no longer mom saying, get back on task, get back on task, right? When she just distracted herself, that red bar goes down below the midline and she hears focus. And then she knows she's not in that state she needs to be in. And this constant feedback loop, what we're doing is we're helping them really develop that self-regulation and self-monitoring they need in order to do it at will. So this is where we're asking her to take all of the skills she's learned within play attention and apply them to her real work. Now, I want you to think about which activities you would like to incorporate. We just did a reading webinar on how, ADHD affects reading comprehension and recall, and how we can use Academic Bridge to improve reading comprehension, keep them on track. But for you as an adult, think about work tasks you could incorporate. I work with one adult right now, and she's a teacher. And one of her greatest difficulties was grading papers. And she was an English high school English teacher. And she would actually take her entire weekend to grade papers because she was so distracted, and it would take her a whole weekend. So she never had any time off. I bet many of you can relate. So we started incorporating Academic Bridge, and through that feedback, she started learning things she was doing that she thought was helping, like music in the background, was not helping. We could actually see her stats go down when she had music in the background. Time of day, how long she was working, what kind of spurts we should do. And now she's down to 2 hours on the weekend for homework, to grade papers instead of 2 days. Beverly wants to talk about how to organize her things, and we can incorporate some of that into this as well, Beverly. And organization, remember, is part of executive function. So in order to be more organized, you have to improve your attention. You have to improve your processing. You have to improve your memory. And all of those skills are worked on in every single play attention session. So you're always working on those skills that you need in order to be more organized. I hope that makes sense, Beverly. Let me know if you have more questions. And I want you to think about the graphics that you've seen so far. Remember Ty with the character where he pushed it down to the bottom of the ocean? Remember that, the graphics in there? That's about as exciting as we get. That's about as exciting as our graphics get, because we know that if we give you or your child something very high stimuli, like a video game, a regular video game, or a YouTube video, or something high interest, you can hyper focus on that, right? Your child can hyper focus on a video game or hyper focus on his Legos, and it's hard to draw them away from it, right? Next week, we're doing a special webinar on hyperfocus and how to manage it, because hyperfocus is one of those things that can be a real asset in your life, but you have to know how to manage it. Because if you don't know how to manage it, suddenly you have spent 5 hours on a project, but you missed your 2 o'clock call. You forgot to pick up your kids at school. So we need to know how to manage it to make that part of your superpowers. So hyperfocus is there, right? Attention deficit is a misnomer. There is nobody here with a deficit of attention. If it's high stimuli, they are wired to pay attention to it. So we give you very low stimuli activities, because we don't need to teach you how to pay attention to entertainment. You can do that. Your child can do that. Your students can do that. What we need to teach is what's more difficult, and that's how to pay attention to low stimuli, much like the classroom teacher who cannot possibly compete, okay? We also work on short-term memory. Kristen says, that makes sense. All my son wants is high stimuli screen time. Kristen, absolutely. And I bet he's one of those who can hyper focus, right? And then it's hard to draw him away from it. Those transitions become difficult, where he may have a bit of a meltdown when you're trying to get him to move on to the homework or to the lower stimuli situations. So again, he can pay attention to that. She says, exactly. We don't need to teach him that. We need to teach skills that he can apply in the classroom and at home. Now, we also work on short-term memory. So short-term memory helps you remember dates, names, facts, and discriminatory processing. That's the ability to filter distractions, both auditory and visual. And, a lot of times I'll talk to our adults and they'll say, it's like there are a million different TV sets going on in my head all at the same time. So again, not a lack of attention, not a deficit of attention. You have great attention. The problem is that you're paying attention to bits and pieces of everything around you, right? So you may be able to tell me a little bit about what I'm saying right now, but you also know what the bird's doing outside. You know what's on TV in the other room. You know what your child's doing over on the computer. And so you're picking up bits and pieces of everything. So what we need to teach is how to pay attention to what's important and filter out all of that unnecessary stimuli. Okay. Now, these first 6 activities come standard in the core, and each activity from attention stamina down to academic bridge has a beginner, intermediate, and advanced skill options. So there are certain benchmarks before we move up to intermediate and then to advanced. And our artificial intelligence will actually track those benchmarks and graduate you when appropriate. So you don't have to keep track of that. Our artificial intelligence does that for you. And that's like I said to Kristen, you might be using the same program with multiple individuals, but you're going to move through the program very differently because everyone has different strengths and weaknesses. So the first 6, and Lark had questions about that. The first 6 that I just mentioned are the ones that come standard. The remainings are options for you, and you can pick and choose from those. They're typically, Lark asked how much are the extra ones. They typically are about $50 a piece for the extra ones that you can add on at any time. But those first 6 come standard. Auditory processing is the ability to follow through with multiple step instructions. Like if you say, go to your room, put away your sneakers, bring down your jacket. Hand-eye coordination is more about small motor control. So it helps with handwriting and keyboarding. Motor skills is a good one if you have more bumps, bruises, accidents than your peers. It helps with that mind-body coordination. Social skills, we're going to teach how to actually pay attention to the social cues. Because a lot of times we'll have parents call in and they'll say, my daughter is so sweet, and yet she struggles with friends. And that's usually simply because they're not paying attention to the social cue. They miss the look. They miss the shake of the head. So they end up responding what seems to be inappropriately or impulsively. But really, it's just that they miss the social cue. Spatial memory is remembering where things are located. So if you come in and you throw your car keys down on the counter, 2 hours later, when you have to leave, you'll remember where you placed them. And working memory. I know a lot of you have actually gone through working memory assessments. And many times working memory is very low. And again, you can have a very high IQ, but poor working memory. You can think about working memory as kind of like your mental workspace. Okay. It's that ability to take in information, hold that information in your memory, manipulate that information, and then give a response. Much like a mathematical word problem. So mathematical word problems, reading comprehension are all affected by working memory. Or some of you may be my age and remember the days before GPS where we had to remember how to get to someone's house. They gave us instructions. We had to hold that in our memory and then follow through. That is part of working memory. So again, all of these cognitive exercises that we address are going to lay the foundation for strong executive function. So all of those areas, mental flexibility, organization, time management, emotion regulation, you're going to see improvements once we can strengthen these skills. A lot of you said emotion regulation is a concern for you. So if you think about everything that goes into controlling your emotions, you have to pay attention to the situation. You have to be able to process the information. You have to be able to control your impulsive responses. And all of those skills, again, are addressed every single session. So you're always working to improve executive function. Now, in addition to incorporating feedback with cognitive skills, we also know that many of you want to work on behavior shaping. So how many of you, raise your hands. Let me look at the raise your hand icon here. Raise your hands if you're interested in helping your child or your clients decrease or extinguish behaviors like fidgeting, nail biting, chewing on their shirts, calling out, those types of behaviors. Now, it's okay if you don't have those behaviors, because sometimes we do not have those behaviors. So we can turn this component off. But for many of you, and many of you said that you are interested in those areas, for many of you who want to work on those behaviors, there's a full behavior shaping program. And this is so powerful because a lot of times you'll notice that you ask your child to stop fidgeting, stop moving your legs, stop chewing on your shirt, and they look at you like, I wasn't doing that. They're very unaware of the behavior. And then even when you point it out, they don't really understand how it affects them. They know it bothers you. I had one little boy in my second grade classroom, and he was really bright, but he would call out all the time. I would be teaching math, he'd call out what he did over the weekend, just random things. And when I originally asked him, I said, why do you think it's important you don't call out? And he said, because you tell me not to. So he had no idea how it affected him. And so in doing the play attention activities, though, if you think about what Ty was doing with that character, and Jaylon would have that character at the bottom of the ocean, and then he'd call out, I like SpaghettiOs, and immediately that character would start to float up. And then I have a teachable moment. Now, what happened to that character when you called out? Well, he started to float up. So what does that mean? It means I'm not paying attention. So in the classroom, when you do that, what does that mean? Means I'm not paying attention. So now it's no longer me telling him what to do and what not to do. I'm just guiding him through the process. So now, again, very empowering. He sees that he is doing this behavior. He knows over time that he can control it. Once they see that this is something not outside of their control, that they can control it, that's where you're going to see the behavior changes take place. So that's really empowering. Now, we've been doing this integrative approach for about 27 years, that integration of feedback with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. But Tufts University wanted to know, is that integration important? Or can we just give them a series of cognitive exercises like you hear a lot about as brain games and get the same results? So they went into the Boston Public School District and they had 3 different groups of students, all identified as ADHD. The first group received play attention, so they had full integration. The second group received just cognitive exercises. So cognitive exercises, brain games on the computer, but no feedback technology. And remember, the importance here is the first catalyst necessary for brain change is attention. You have to be paying attention in order to spark those new neural pathways. And that's what we're doing. Plus, the third group was their control. So they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the play attention students were the only students that showed global improvements in all areas, including academics, social, behavioral, and executive function. They were also the only students that if they started the study and they were on medication, because some were on, some were not. If they started the study and they were on medication, the play attention students had an average decrease in their medication, whereas the other 2 groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. If we can help you develop those cognitive skills that you need, then there may be less of a necessity to control symptoms, to mask symptoms. So those are great studies. And if you would like to review those, you can type Tufts in the chat box and we'll make certain that we get those out to you. Now, many of you have been typing in the box, how does the whole process work? And it is a very simple process, and we guide you through everything. So the very first thing we do, like I mentioned earlier, is assign you and personal executive function coach. Now, this is one of our coaches here on staff to assist you every step of the way from start to graduation and beyond. Even if after you graduate, you want to continue using the program, we'll continue working with you. Your support is unlimited. So the very first thing we'll do is we will assess your particular needs. Now, we can do this a couple of different ways. One is that you can simply have a conversation with your executive function coach, and we can talk about the different strengths and weaknesses and pinpoint those different cognitive areas. Or we do have a couple of assessments available. One is called Focus, which is a norm reference test of attentional control. It is computer-based. It takes about 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, we receive a full report here that tells us how you performed, or your child or your students performed, compared to the performance of their peers. And then we need about a 30-minute block of time to review those results and set up your profile. That's the next part, where we actually set up your profile for everyone in the family or help you with your client profiles. And this is where we give everyone their own personal login, and where we actually then pinpoint and select the different cognitive exercises that are most important for that individual. So you see on the computer screen where we've highlighted in blue all of the cognitive exercises that are important for that individual. And then we will take you through a practice session, okay? So we set everything up, we assess your needs, we set up your profile, select the different cognitive skills necessary for that individual, and then we're going to take you through a practice session just to make sure you're real comfortable with everything before you start working on your sessions officially. Okay, and then once you go through that tutorial, you're ready to begin your sessions. And don't worry, because not only do you have that personal executive function coach to help you through the process, you also have our artificial intelligence called Sheer Genius. And Sheer Genius does a lot for you in the background. So Sheer Genius sets the daily curriculum. That means when you log in, that Sheer Genius will select the most appropriate activities for that day based on previous performance. Provide a deliberate practice model, which means once we set the activities for the day, then Sheer Genius is going to set mini goals. Yesterday, you worked on time on task and you completed it with 70% attention. Today, let's try 72% attention. And if you do that, you earn a point. And the point goes into their reward system, which is also tracked by Sheer Genius. And you can set up rewards where they can use their play attention points to actually purchase rewards that you set up. And of course, Sheer Genius is going to monitor progress. So you're always going to have access to your progress over time. The data will be stored and tracked for you so that you can always see progress. However, just, you're looking at the screen now and you see the correlation data, and it's great to have all of this data, but sometimes you might want more information. So you reach out to your personal executive function coach and request a data review. We'll review your data, talk to you about progress, help you set objectives, send you a full report, and also follow up with a phone call. Deanna says her grandson is 5.5. Deanna, we do recommend that they're at least 5. So he is at a good age to start this process. But remember, you can work from 5 all the way up through 105. So children and adults, because we know it's never too late, that we can customize your plan throughout your lifetime. So it's really important to keep in mind, though, that we want a consistent training schedule. So everyone here, we do want to make certain, oh, Kristen, you're right on cue. She says, if we improve our executive function, how long do the positive changes last? That's what we're working towards. We're working towards permanency. So this training schedule is really important. So the training schedule we recommend is at least an hour per week. And you can break that up. Deanna's grandson is 5, so probably best for him to do 6 10-minute sessions, 4 15-minute sessions. Let's break it up. A lot of our clients do 4 15-minute sessions, even as an adult, because it easily fits into your day. So you could do 2 30-minute sessions. Now, a lot of individuals are saying, can we do more over the summer because you are looking at transitioning into that new school year, or you're transitioning back into the office situation. So absolutely, you can do more than an hour per week. That's just the minimum we recommend. And so after about 6 weeks of consistent training, you're going to start to see small steps of improvement. You are more organized, you're more focused, your child's more engaged. You gave your daughter 3 instructions and she followed through without being redirected or reminded. Your child is completing his homework in a timely manner. You're less stressed because you're not disorganized and running late all the time. So you're going to notice these small steps. But what you're not seeing is what's actually occurring in the brain. And that's that you're causing these new neural pathways to become formed. Remember how we talked about the brain develops new neural pathways in order to strengthen skills. So you're creating these new neural pathways. And in the beginning, they're weak, right? That means one day it will look like your child's doing beautifully. And the next day, it looks like he's never heard the word attention. And so there's going to be a little bit of up and down, but through the practice and repetition, we're going to strengthen those networks to a point of permanency. And that goes to Kristen's question. How do we get permanency? Permanency usually takes place around 40 hours. And so that, if you're working an hour per week, I'd plan on about 10 months of consistent training. Everyone learns differently. So around that 40-hour mark, you and your executive function coach will look at the data within your software, make certain you're at all the advanced skill options. Maybe we'll do another focus or brief assessment to make certain everything's transferred and generalized. If everything looks good, then we can start graduating you from the program. If it looks like there's more work to be done, we simply customize the plan and we keep working. So we continue working with you until you're ready to graduate. But even once you graduate, you have a lifetime membership with the program. So even once you graduate, if you want to continue using the program as peak performance training, you can do that. You can continue using it at peak times. I have colleagues who like to use it in the beginning of the day if they have a big presentation. I have one colleague who uses it before he goes out on the tennis court. So you can always use it as peak performance, but you'll never have to go through that strict training again. Once you've strengthened those networks, they're yours. You're going to use them every day and you're not going to lose those skills. I do know that that is an investment in your time, right? I'm asking you to commit to an hour per week for about a full 40 hours. But I want to share this one short video with you. I know we're running out of time. There's some questions I need to address and some final things, but I do want to share this video because I know it's an investment in your time, but to make a lifelong change is well worth it. So I wanted to share Latravius with you. He started the program when he was 11. And now he's in his 30s and talks about how he still uses those skills he learned as a child in adulthood.
I began to use play attention when I was in the 6th grade. I was about 11 years old. The behavior and the incident that required me to use play attention was my concentration levels. My mother felt that I wasn't concentrating enough. My grades were not where they were supposed to be, and I just had trouble staying on task. Her options were either medication or play attention, and she felt like that it would be a better long-term approach for me. And I would go from my classroom to use play attention for a specific amount of time each day. When you're using play attention, you can see the results immediately because you can actually see your results at that time. I'm extremely glad she made that decision. My attention improved a lot immediately. Before I was using play attention, my grades were C's and D's. I was an average student, below average. But when I started using play attention, I began to see my grades increase as well as my concentration level. I became an A/B student. That gives your self-esteem a real boost. It shows that whatever you put your mind to, that it is obtainable. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for a healthcare organization. And so I utilized the skills that I obtained early from using play attention when I was that sixth grader that could not concentrate, that could not stay on task. And I have really adjusted those skills into life skills, using them every day when I'm working, when I'm having to plan meetings, or I'm having to do presentations. It has really allowed me to concentrate fully. I think anybody could benefit from play attention because I think it can improve whatever concentration level or concentration issues that you may have. You know, I was actually watching on television not too long ago and someone was talking about betting on yourself. And I think that purchasing play attention is betting on yourself. You want to put all on you to make sure that you are the person that you want to be.
Thank you. Thank you for watching that with me. I think it's important to hear from some of our clients who started using the program many, many years ago and still have those skills today. So I will address some of your remaining questions, but I know some of you said you had to jump soon. So I wanted to just finalize, summarizing just a reminder of everything your program will come with. Of course, you'll have that body wave technology. You'll have your customized neurocognitive training program, the full behavior shaping program. We have family management, training and support all along the way. We do provide you with exercise and nutrition guidance because we know that as you develop these skills, it's important to have a healthy lifestyle to support those skills. So every week, you'll notice on Fridays especially, we have Food and Fitness Fridays, and we give tips and strategies to have a healthy lifestyle. You'll have those data reports and continual support and customization with your personal executive function coach, and all of this comes with a lifetime membership.